We're good to go.
All right. Well, hey, everybody. My name is Brian Trevilla, and I'm here along with Matt Pickett from the LRG Group, the Logistical Resource Group. And today we're going to be talking with the founder and CEO of LRG, Matt Pickett. And, Matt, before we get into the mechanics of LRG, we'd like to get to know you a little bit. And I'd like to start with the belief behind it. Like, what did you see in the logistics world that made you say, huh? I think I can do this better or offer some better ways to do it for others. So I'm curious your thoughts.
Yeah, so I came up in the logistics world. My dad was operating with FedEx, when I started with him in 2001, but he came from the RPS model. And he started contracting was 1985, I believe. So I was 5 years old. Before there was any type of DOT regulations and contract standards, he threw a uniform on me, picked me up from preschool, and I went on a route with him, right? So I grew up in that world. As much as I tried to veer off and find another business to start, he suckered me into joining the family business. So I worked for him for 15 years, bought his business in 2015, started scaling it really fast with FedEx, and then in 16 jumped over to, Amazon. It was the first one coming from the FedEx world, jumping in the 1.0 model. And as I was growing and networking and meeting a bunch of new people that weren't in my small market and, where I was at in the world that I lived in, I saw this amazing opportunity to continue to network with those folks, but we just didn't have a platform or a place where we could go to congregate, utilize each other to sharpen each other, help support our efforts to grow as logistics owners, and then be able to, use our buying power, which is another important part. So, I learned that very early on when I started, developing as an entrepreneur, meeting all these great people in the industry, understanding that there was a lot of, challenges, and we were all learning as we were going. And, it was an awesome experience at the very beginning, jumping in and working with other folks doing the same thing I was doing.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I think learning as we go is a very common trait in the logistics world.
Oh, yeah.
And I guess being an operator or an owner, quite a few years ago, like from then to now, if you could say, what belief still drives the company LRG today?
Yep. So, like you said, a lot of people learn the hard way. I know I did.
Mhm.
But then as I grew my network of people and I had more connections, I started talking to people that had already been there and done that. And so what it gave me is this position to stay ahead of the curve and understand, okay, if I do this, this trigger is going to happen here. So how can I work through this? How can I have a better strategy, a better system, be in a position to succeed right away? So as we look to position that, that's really the driving force, is making sure that we stay ahead of the curve, use all the intellectual property from the group and, thousands of years of experience between everybody to share best practices, share industry knowledge, and make sure that you're in a position where you can succeed any direction you go. I learned when I jumped into Amazon, I was trying to get in contact with somebody and say, hey, what does it look like over there? I'm coming from the FedEx world. How can I be successful over there? That entrepreneur that launched in LA, he was telling me about his experience, and he was on the fly too, building it as he was going.
Yeah.
But he was looking to come into FedEx, and I told him what that looked like. So we continued to share information that helped each other both out as we move forward.
Awesome. The communal sharing's a common thread that I know we'll talk a lot about. Most people have no idea how chaotic last mile delivery is. What are the pain points that you kept seeing that no one really wanted to talk about?
Yep. So I think it's that constant daily grind. So operations is the one that really you got to measure, and you have to build a really good, clean system on how you recruit, how you train and hire and onboard your talent and your drivers. And then you have to have really strong leadership. So you got to put a lot of time into developing people. So you got to have really good people skills, and you have to be able to provide leadership all the time. And you go through a lot of, unbalanced rules of engagement where it's shifting and changing all the time. And then when that happens, everybody's going to look to you for the answers. But we always did it in a way where you create that collaborative environment for the drivers, all of your leadership team, and you as the owner, so you can explore ways as a team to work through those challenges because they're going to be consistent. And when you look at it, there's not one thing you can focus on because there's multiple things over a 7-day work week that are going to pop up. And all those variables need decisions real quick, and they need to be measured to improve the situation. And then you can continue to refine it, but you have to be quick and nimble, and you have to make fast decisions to improve and make measurable goals happen.
Wow. Well, a couple of things I'll pull out is, you've been with FedEx, you were with Amazon, and you mentioned 7-day work week. And most people in the non-logistics world say 5-day work week. But what was the moment you realized the industry wasn't broken? It just may not been served correctly.
Yep. So when you go through and you figure those rigors out and you create your system and you get in a position where you're fine-tuned and you're scalable, you get in that spot where you feel like, oh, it's a sweet spot. I'm good. I can ride this out. Well, it's never going to be there. You constantly have to innovate. You constantly have to change who you are in the industry because it's shifting and changing all the time. So when we saw it, we said, it's not broken. It's just evolving. It's growing fast. There's a customer demand that we can't find out there. If you're looking at getting into any business, right, and starting that up, you can scale, you can grow. And there's a ton of people that see a logistics professional as a valuable commodity. So really, it's just like about how do you create the good systems? How do you communicate best practices? How do you provide, resources to enrich everybody that's getting in or looking to scale? Because you go through those different stages in your career, and every time you do, there's new growing pains that happen. So, if you can save money, if you can get better standard practices, if you have a system that can support you with technology, those are all the things that we look to do with LRG for our members.
I love it. Let's dig into that a little bit more. So you build LRG, and what did you want to transform for the people, like the running the operations on a day-to-day basis? Like, what was your main drive that you put pen to paper for a business plan?
Yep. Big picture was I wanted to be able to facilitate ways to, have people in our company buying houses, having their first kids, supporting and leading a group of people in that way where you considered them as human beings, not as employees and people that you wanted to see win. And then when we looked at other people in our industry and space, you're talking about salt of the earth. They're working their tails off every day. They have families to support. Then they're also doing the same thing. They're doing what? They're paying for the livelihoods of all those other people that they're providing job opportunities for. And you look at there's thousands now within just a small ecosystem, one state, where those 1,000 employees are all needed to, be successful, but they need the entrepreneur that's running those companies to lead the way. So it was really important that we had a whole full system and a setup to make sure we could value everybody in the supply chain, not just the owners, but then also the drivers and the people who are participating, in working with these companies in last mile.
Awesome. Well, it brings me to think, if you had to explain LRG to someone outside of the logistics world in a sentence or two, how would you do that?
That's a tough one. So it is a platform that is shared by all members, driven by the members. We don't make any unilateral decisions on what we're doing to create success and sustainability for people in logistics.
I love it. When you say members, let's talk about that just for a second. Like, is this like, what does membership look like in LRG?
So when we look at, having somebody come into the group, we go through just a basic onboarding process where we want to get to know them as an individual, what their business goals are, and how we can specifically support them, because we have people that have been in the industry for almost 30 years now, right? Mm-hmm. They got a fine-tuned system. They might look at an exit strategy here in the next 6 months or a year. Then you have somebody that's brand new, just getting in, or somebody that's looking to get in. So all these variations of where they're at in their career, and our goal is to make sure that we can support every level of that, right? So we want to get to know them, and then we want to find channels of ways that we can support and have them also participate, because we have, buying groups, we have, focus groups, We have
Mhm.
all these different dynamic teams and people that are working together on certain things, projects within the membership. So we want to make sure that they're, going to find the right place to fit in and where they can see value and, work with other entrepreneurs that are like them, and create those relationships through the network in the community.
Awesome. Well, let's jump to you real quick a little bit more. What leader did you have to become when you think about running a logistics company early on at FedEx, took over for your dad in preschool, and then you jumped over to Amazon? That was a sort of a leadership dimension that took to run those companies. But what kind of a leader have you had to become now running LRG?
So when I looked at like the career that I had, starting with my dad, he was a pain in the butt. I couldn't miss a day of work, Brian. There was no call offs. There was no such thing as a call out. I don't know what that meant. If I had a broken leg, I would have got a splint and he would have taken some stops off me, maybe, right? So looking at it from the perspective of, building and creating success or working with folks that are part of our group, it's really about facilitating, letting them reach their full potential as leaders,
Mhm.
letting them lead this platform, letting them participate and join in ways that they can support their families and then their employees and their families that are part of, the teams that they create and the businesses they operate. That's really what the focus is now.
Awesome. I like it. I'll flip the coin a little bit. What's the hardest lesson the logistics world has taught you so far?
Boy, diversification is not a want, it's a necessary thing. So if you want to create long-term sustainability and you want to have options as an entrepreneur, you can't have all of your revenue with one business partner.
Mhm.
And if you want to look at, multiple things you can do as a logistics professional, I think a lot of people stay very focused and tight on, hey, this is where I came in, this is what I learned, here's the model that I'm used to operating. Doesn't mean you can't diversify and jump into something else very quickly and learn that as well, or other businesses. So I've always said, to other people that I know that own different businesses, logistics, last mile is the hardest industry to manage a business and be an owner. So if you can get through that and you can do that and have success, there's a lot of businesses you can operate in success. And you look at what's convertible to, you know, management of the functions of those businesses. A lot of the same things you do in last mile, running a company there, are the same exact responsibilities and goals you're going to have running any other business. And
Yeah.
you're fine tuned to do that.
Seems like a coffee shop's a walk in the park.
Yes. Yeah, that's where I talk to people that are like, in restaurants, right? And that's a tough industry too.
Tough
A lot
one.
of variability, a lot of changes, a lot of challenges out there, and some other industries that are similar like that. And that's where, people coming from our industry, they convert very easy. Just like people coming in from restaurants go, hey, it's a similar type of business. There's some variables there, but I'm used to these similar type things, and they can really crush it out of the park. They just, don't want to take that at first initial step because they
Sure.
get stuck in the mud and stay in their lane that they're used to. It's
Got it.
natural for everybody.
Love it. Two-part question I'm going to hit you with. What do you feel is changing fastest in the logistics delivery world now? And then what do you think most people get wrong?
I think speed to market is the thing that comes to mind as far as like, the network and the supply and demand. Customer demand is same day delivery, right? So, and then you look at margin compression with that and service levels that are really hard to scale.
Mhm.
So flexibility and ways to, be really focused on a tight budget and drive efficiencies. I think you can still have great success as an operator that does the same core things, manages fleet, manages SOPs, manages people really well. And that's going to give you a way to scale and be successful and get through a lot of barriers. But I think AI and technology is something that you have to use, where before you could be, a fleet operator and a business owner in the entrepreneur space and logistics and utilize technology a little bit. Now you almost have to be forward thinking as I utilize technology, but I operate a logistics company.
Yeah. All right, three-part question. Where do you see the logistics in the next 5 years?
So a lot of changes still to come. A lot of things are evolving very fast now. I think Amazon's led the way when it comes to, creating a system that everybody else has to repeat to stay competitive. FedEx is going through major changes now, so they can create more competition with that same day and next day delivery. Margin compression is always going to be a challenge when you look at changes in these different models. For you to stay ahead of the game, you have to look at a long-term strategy and a long-term exit plan. When you look at like a 3 to 5 year window, you will really want to create scalability, and you want to make sure that you're in a system where you have enough meat on the bone to where if there's variances or changes, it's not going to push you in a bad position, but you're still nimble and you're not boxed into a position where you can't make any different moves. You're backed in a corner and you're only with one customer, and your business is in a position where it can't succeed and you can't make any and you can't pivot. So I would say you keep ahead of the curve by staying in a system where you can have more controls, you have less of a debt load, you can see that there's changes coming, you stay on top of those, and then you're pushing your team and your company in a position to diversify, and also make sure that you're flexible and you're staying forward thinking into we're going to have to continue to evolve over the next 3 to 5 years as additional changes happen.
Love it. Love it. Well, let's talk about the future of LRG and what's the next evolution of LRG? Are you able to share any juicy details?
Yep. Yeah. So for a long time, I was running a very large scale logistics company, and everybody that's been in that space knows what that looks like. I only saw my kids in the evening, right? And it's a 7 day operation. Then I grew very fast in a 5 year span. So looking at now where I'm at and what I want to focus on is a lot of time on building and growing LRG, because I feel like there's a huge opportunity for us to support this great network of entrepreneurs in this industry. So bringing in high level leaders like yourself and other partners that are part of this thing, and then really providing ways for our members to be super active to drive this thing forward. We're still going to focus on our core things. We're still going to focus on cost savings, because that's something everybody needs. That gives you a better margin output, creates better cash flow right away. And we have an accumulative buying power of over $4 billion. So that's going to be a key goal. The other thing is we have great vendor partners that we work with. So these companies are defined as best in class because they have great track records working with our members. They can vouch for their experiences with them. Testimonials are great. So we look at a true partnership with them. Then we're looking at a different way to diversify so we can give people options, and we want to lead the way. We're not going to throw anybody in there and say, hey, you let us know what it looks like on the back end. We're going to jump in head first and explore different ways we can scale and grow, and find out business opportunities for people. And then that accumulative effect of everybody working together and under one platform where we can do anything we want to do. We can go anywhere we want to go. We can go lobby on Capitol Hill. We can go start our own logistics company, and we're in a position to control and do that. And that's what I'm really excited about. And that's where we're focused now.
I love it. I love it. Well, I'm going to close it down here, but I have a question or two. What's the one thing you want every contractor, operator, logistic business owner that's listening to this to walk away with?
Know that you have tremendous worth. And even if you feel like you're struggling, or you're in a position where you're not having the success you're hoping, or if you're flying high and you're hitting on all cylinders, know that there's a network you can be part of where you can work with other like-minded entrepreneurs that are all going through the same experience that you are, where you can come in and share in that experience and not go at it alone. And that's an important part, and that's the community, and that's what we want to support entrepreneurs are, being part of LRG.
Well, I'll tell you, from what it sounds like to me, Matt, it's like we're all shoulder to shoulder and doing this together.
Got it. Yep.
Well, there you have it, everyone. Delighted to bring founder and CEO of Logistical Resource Group, Matt Pickett, on with us today. And I'm Brian Travilla, and I hope you have a wonderful and safe day.
Thanks, Brian.
You bet.